There we go. Good morning, everyone. Hello, Shivani. Thank you for joining us for our third and unfortunately last session with you, but I think this is a super valuable one. And I'm sure everyone will get tons of tips and new jobs from this. To our members, can I please ask that you do the nice thing and switch on your cameras and stay engaging for this session? It is unfortunately super important. So, Shivani, also feel free to just cold call on anyone. Um, it is the way that you'll get the most out of it in this session, everyone. So please switch on your cameras, keep them on, stay engaged. Yeah, and then I hope you just have fun and learn a ton. Shivani, over to you.
Thanks, Yad. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. Let me do presentation mode and
Can you?
let me know which of my screens you guys can see, if you can see the actual, oh, there we go. I got it. You'd think after years of doing this, it would get easier.
The right one.
Brilliant. Okay, amazing. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I'm gonna introduce myself again in a second because I'm not sure how many of you have joined me. But before that, just as like a warm up, I would love to hear, you can drop it in the chat or you can raise your hand. How many of you are considering a career in consulting? Just generally? Considering a career in consulting, any of you? Ooh, Tumi goes, me. Yes, amazing. What about the rest of you?
I am.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, brilliant. Even if you're not considering a case, a career in consulting, I can promise you that moving forward, a lot of companies are using the case methodology or the case interview techniques to start interviewing within their companies because it's just so practical. It's like the best way to land messaging. It's the best way to test and assess your skills. So that's what today's presentation is all about, is specifically how to ace the case interview. I've called it the Case Ninja Workshop, so all of you can leave here feeling like ninjas of casing. So with that, I'm just going to start with how I would love for us to engage. So you had to kind of set the stage. If possible, guys, turn on your camera because I want to see your faces. I want to see your smiles. And also it's death as a facilitator to look at a black screen. I would love to see all of you. I understand that we live in South Africa and we might have limitations with bandwidth or issues. I get all of that, but if you can, please turn on your camera to please engage, and honestly, like, engage your heart out. There are no foolish questions at all. In fact, I love foolish questions. I love asking them. I'm personally a fan of Hermioneing every class. My hand is always up. So hopefully all of you can embody your inner Shivani today. So ask all the questions. How you want to do that is up to you. If you want to drop it in the chat or if you want to raise your hand, I would prefer that because I want more voices in the room, or yeah, whatever format works for you. And then also in general, like, engage with other classmates. Like if they have questions or if they say something and you agree with it, like give them a little reaction. Let's make this a vibe. Otherwise, yeah, let's just have fun today, this morning, and make the most of it. Great. Oh, also around questions, please don't, I hate the leave questions till the end vibe. That's not me at all. Ask questions as they come to you, immediately ask them because they'll be relevant, and probably everybody else in the class also has a similar question to you, so we can help each other out. Great. So if that sounds good, hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm going to start with a quick introduction. I'm Shivani Kai. Some of you have had a chance to meet me through our casing work. And yes, I am always this energized. No coffee, no Red Bull. I can promise you I've been off the caffeine train for a couple months now. This is just me living my best life. Had a great run this morning, and now I'm bringing all that energy to all of you on a Saturday morning. I know it's hard. You guys have probably had a full week of working and studying, but I will bring the energy. You guys just get on the train and feel the vibes. Okay, so a little bit about me. If you don't know me already, I'm Shivani, and I started my own nano consultancy after my MBA, which is Vitreous Consulting, and that is the medium through which I do a lot of these workshops. My aspiration was, especially during my MBA and after my MBA, I realized that within South Africa, there really isn't a focus on casing as a teaching methodology or as an interviewing methodology, except for consulting. So most people in South Africa after their undergrad or even after their MBA are shocked when they walk into a consulting interview because they've never had this experience. And that was my personal experience during my MBA. but I had worked as a consultant, so I was familiar with lots of case interviews. We did this a lot in my firm as well. So I wanted to bring that as a gift to everybody. And I'm really happy that a lot of universities have adopted this. So I've had the chance to do this at Gibbs, at the GSB, and at Stellenbosch for the second year in a row. So hope you guys enjoyed the workshop. Other than that, I also teach a management consulting course at IX. Every year I'm the head teacher for that as well. And yeah, I'm looking here because my big screen's here, but also, I used to work in consulting. I'm now reformed and I work as a strategist in the development sector. I love working with young people and I love working for impact in South Africa. Other than that, I am also a coach and facilitator. I coach for case interviews one-on-one. So people who are very serious about their journey and have gone down the route and I've done my workshop and then I've done a few practice interviews. I'll then ask them if they want to do one-on-ones with me, but that's way down the line when you just want to really get the polishing in, okay? And then finally, I love unlocking potential. That's literally the vision for my life. So if you have potential, I want to help you unlock it. That's me. And in general, I'm an all-around cool cat. So hopefully we'll have a lot of fun together. Okay, so what is our agenda for today? We're actually going to start with quick welcome intros, which we're doing right now. Thank you so much, Johet, for setting the stage for us. And we've talked about how we want to engage in this space. Right after that, we're going to spend about 10 minutes going over what the structure of consulting interviews actually looks like. We're then going to go into what FIT and PEI interviews are. Okay, that's the first portion of a case interview. All will be revealed soon. And then we're going to spend a whole 40 minutes, guys, a big meat of this morning, talking about the structure of case interviews and how each of you can engage with them. We're then going to take a break. And casing won't be casing unless we actually do it practically. So we're going to spend the second half doing a real-time case, live case with me for another hour. And then I'm going to leave some time for Q&A at the end. Okay. Please don't feel like you have to stay all the way to 12. If you have a hard stop around 11:30, no worries. Okay, so if that sounds good to everybody, I'm going to jump right into it. As mentioned, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Okay. Okay, consulting interviews 101. Yes, not your mama's average interview. There's a lot of fun stuff to unpack here. But the one thing that I did want to mention is within every case interview, about less than 25% of it is focused on something called FIT and PEI. You can also think about that as like the personality part of the interview. And the other 75% plus of the interview is actually a case. Okay, and we're going to talk about what a case looks like and how to case. But first, we're going to start with talking about FIT and PEI this morning. I do want to mention to all of you, I don't know how familiar you are with the consulting landscape. I did read in the comments, one of you is a consultant. If you have work experience and you've completed your MBA, you don't start at the interview, the consulting rung at the bottom. Okay, so you'll actually be interviewing either as an associate, senior associate, or at a consultant position, depending on your interview. So obviously you'll also be tackling a little bit harder cases. In addition to this, your first interview is generally first round or two might be online, and they might be with junior consultants and consultants, and your final interviews will generally be with the partners at the firm. All right, so if that sets the stage for all of you, before I get into FIT and PEI, I would just love to hear from all of you and get some voices in the room. What do you guys think are core skills that management consulting firms are looking for and are testing through this process?
Like analytical thinking or something, maybe?
Raul, yeah, sorry, could you repeat yourself?
Analytical thinking?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Analytical thinking, what else?
Problem solving.
Problem solving, 100%, 100%, right? So as consulting firms, why are we hired? The client hires us to solve problems or complex problems that they are unable to solve for themselves. So that's definitely one of the #1 skills that a consultant needs to have. What else?
Big picture thinking, I would say.
Yeah, tell me a bit more about that.
Just kind of looking at different parts of the business and spotting problems or inefficiencies across everything, so across silos.
Yeah, I think one of the key things that makes a consultant a successful one is systems thinking, right? So not having a linear mindset like A leads to B, but instead understanding that 600 things lead to B. And so the solution also cannot be a linear one. Absolutely. Great insight. Anybody else?
Maybe to think and find solutions under pressure.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so being able to work under pressure, absolutely
Yeah.
love that. And then Goodwill says listing and analytical skills. Okay, all right. So we're hearing a lot of critical thinking, analytical skills. Let's see. We've talked about problem solving for sure. Brilliant. This one I didn't hear a lot, so I'm surprised. Leadership, right? Like all of you are doing an MBA. And if I was a consulting firm, I'm not just hiring you for a short-term project. I'm hiring you for your ability to be a leader within this firm. I want to know that hopefully I'm cultivating somebody who might be a partner in the next few years. I don't want to invest in somebody for just 2 years and then let them go. So leadership is key that you want to be able to demonstrate in your interview. What about results, being results oriented? Right? That's absolutely key because that's what we're trying to demonstrate for our clients. Ooh, okay. Sasiko says communication and presentation skills, 100%, right? We need to be able to do that for our clients. So consulting firms need to see that coming out for us. Honoree says, more recently, the focus is on innovation and innovative problem solving. 100%, guys, we are dealing with more complex problems than ever before in history. And to be able to deal with these, we need complex, beautiful, wicked problem solutions that need innovative approaches. Thank you so much, Henry. Okay, guys, passion. Like anything you do, you need to be passionate about all of the above. You need to be passionate about solving wicked, complex problems. You need to be passionate about being a leader. You need to be passionate about results. Jabu says decision-making and decisive leadership. Absolutely, guys. We are looking for decision makers, especially in a context and maybe in a country where people are just not making decisions. We're having analysis paralysis. So a consultant brings that lens to the room. Okay. And critical thinking, 100%. These are all absolutely skills that are being looked for and tested for. And then finally, guys, I want to mention the whole package includes all the power skills, okay, of the future. And I don't call them soft skills anymore. I think some of you know this about me. They're not soft skills. They're literally power skills. They're what discerning. They are what's discerning people from other people these days. Okay, so do you have critical thinking? Do you have an innovative lens? Do you have creativity that you bring to the table? Do you have analytical skills thinking? Do you have agility, right? Resilience, grit. These are all power skills that are being looked for in the future. And then EQ is a big part of this. Okay, so are you able to work collaboratively? Are you able to focus on all 4 of the elements of EQ? Okay, so that's self-management, relationship management, self-awareness, and social awareness. Okay, can you read your client the moment you walk into the room and understand what their needs are? So these are all a big part of what core skills consulting firms are looking for. Okay.
Shivani, that's funny because you said earlier, this is literally, you can apply these principles to any single interview, but any single type of job that an MBA grad will look at, these skills are necessary. So to your point, this is really not just for consulting, it's for jobs, current jobs.
100%. And yet, if you think about why companies bring in consultants, it's because they are missing that nugget within their own company, right?
Exactly.
So they can, they can either hire for it or they can bring in a consultant. So it's the same set of skills. Absolutely brilliant insight. So let's jump into the 25% of the pie, which is our behavioral questions and behavioral insights that our companies want to glean from this interview. So there's 2 kinds of behavioral questions that you're going to experience. And one of them is the fit and the other one is PEI. Okay, so examples of fit questions might be, why Bain? Okay, why consulting in general? Okay. This is to test if you are a good fit for the firm. Okay, they want to know if your values align, if you're going to be able to work the culture that is the part of the organization. You had a brilliant question. I'm going to get to it right now. Yoad's asking, what does PEI stand for? PEI stands for Personal Experience Interview. Okay, so questions that are, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, and Z. Okay, this is to test for those power skills and to be able to see how you build those power skills. And I'm going to break that down in a second. So fit is most of the questions and PEI is a smaller percentage of it, but PEI is where it gets really complex and where I would recommend that you spend a lot of time practicing. The other ones you don't really need to practice that much because it should be your authentic story. Okay, I would hope that if I asked you why consulting, you haven't rehearsed like a 6-page answer because then I know you're being inauthentic. But dig deep to understand for yourself. So let's have a quick look at some top fit questions that I would recommend that you don't practice, but you actually meditate on or you think about deeply. Okay, because as you think about these questions deeply, you might either find that consulting is not the career for you, or you might think, wow, consulting is the career for me. And then when you express that, it'll be deeply authentic. So some of the top fit questions are, we've already talked about this, why Bain, why BCG, why McKinsey, why consulting? Can I get somebody from the audience to maybe just answer this for me? Why are you interested in a career in consulting? Or maybe Anuri can also tell us why she decided to go into consulting.
Bonnie, for me, it was all about the diversity, and I do get bored very quickly. Hence, all of the projects do stimulate you.
Absolutely. And that is generally a really common answer that you'll get, is just the cadence and the pace at which you can change projects and get diverse experience within one company. I mean, that would be almost impossible working at a corporate, right? To be able to work for telecoms one day, oil and gas one day, and then maybe like a startup, a merger and acquisition situation, right? This is all within the purview of a consultant, and that's brilliant, Anuri. Thank you so much. What about the rest of you? What are you looking to gain by working in consulting, or why does it excite you?
I think for me, it would be to make a difference. I read a stat the other day. It said something along the lines of about 70% of South African SMEs fail within their first 5 to 7 years of operation. And for the most part, South African SMEs struggle with having sufficient skills to run a business within the enterprise, right? Yeah. So as a consultant, if I am working with SMEs, I have the opportunity to make a big difference, because SMEs are big employer or big employment sector in the country as well. So it's to help SMEs survive. It's to help contribute to, I guess, our economic, again, sustainability or growth.
That's really beautiful, right? If I heard that answer as an interviewer, I'd be crying. I'd be like, damn, give this girl a job. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So authentic. I love it. Okay. Next, some other top fit questions might be like, introduce yourself, walk me through your resume, tell me about something interesting on your CV. That's a common question. You might have something like, hey, do you know, okay, I see you're based in Cape Town, but you know our head offices are in Joburg. Like, are you open to moving to Joburg? Why did you apply to our firm? You understand that our offices might be in Nigeria, or you might be required to go to Dubai for your first project. So these are really important things that you need to think about, is if you're maybe unwilling to move a lot, if maybe right now at this point in your life, you can't relocate, maybe this isn't the right move for you. But don't worry, that's about consulting firms. If you're choosing to just learn how to case methodology, it doesn't matter. Okay, so these are just some top fit questions. Let's have a look at some top PEI questions. So this is personal experience interview. That's what PEI means, right? So I want to hear about, tell me about a time when you, okay? Tell me about a time when you led others, okay? Tell me about a time when you managed a team conflict. Maybe tell me about a time when you managed a personal conflict, okay? Tell me about a time when you overcame challenges. Tell me about a time when you influenced others. How did you influence others? Tell me about a time when, and most recently, as Anuri said, is when you came up with an innovative approach to solving a problem. Tell me about a time when you adopted an entrepreneurial mindset within a company, not when you started a side hustle. I want to know that you have what it takes to come up with innovative solutions. So these literally might be key PEI questions that you guys might be asked. So when thinking about PEI questions, there is a way to formulate the answer. And I want to just check in with the audience. Do you guys already know this? It's a pretty common way to answer interview questions, especially PEI. Hating's got it. He's doing like a hand thing. Anybody? I know all of you know the answers.
The STAR, is it called the STAR method?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Thank you. Right. And because I'm so extra, I'm about to add another letter to this acronym. So a lot of you know it as the STAR method, but I recently heard about this and I thought it was brilliant. Somebody who went to a McKinsey interview and told me that she heard about this during her interview, said they are looking for the STAR-OL method, okay? So when you talk about your experience, so tell me about a time when you managed a personal conflict. You start with the situation. This is how you answer the question. The situation was that I don't eat meat and I had to go work at an abattoir. I don't know, personal conflict. Okay. Tell me about the task at hand. So you had to go work at an abattoir, whatever, that might be the task. What is the action that you took to manage this personal conflict? So you said, look, this is a client. I still need to serve our client. However, I do have a personal conflict. So what I chose to do is I found a trusted advisor, a team member who could take on this responsibility for me instead, and sent them to site. And I asked them to take XYZ notes. And when they returned, then I was able to compile the result. The result of this is because I was able to find somebody else to go to the abattoir for me, I was able to address my own personal conflict situation while still not disadvantaging our client. Okay. So this is the traditional STAR method, okay, STAR. Right? In results, this was a really bad example and a very short example. I would like to see something really meaty from you guys. And in results, you would say something like, because of the work that I did, because of the tasks that I put on hand, we were able to get XYZ turnaround, or we reduced our costs by X, or we increased revenue by Z. You should be able to quantify your results, okay, solidly. But now the L that I think is becoming increasingly key that companies want to see is not all situations pan out so brilliantly, okay? Sometimes at the end, you might just say the result was the whole team fell apart. Sorry, that's exactly what happened. But what they want to know is, what was your learning from it? Yes, shit happens, okay? Things fall apart. You might be faced with a really complex situation that you weren't able to deal with in that moment. But the consulting firms want to know, and I think companies want to know, what was your learning from it and what won't you do next time? How will you do it better next time? And I think if you cap off your STAR response with the learning, you'll really be able to differentiate yourself, because I think a lot of people are not thinking about the learnings. Okay. Does that sound good to you?
You like
guys?
memorize like a couple stories like this or something, or how do you?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely on the head. This is what I do. I actually think about almost all of those key areas that you might be asked a question in. And I don't memorize stories, but I actually reflect on stories. So I think, okay, tell me about a time when you were a leader. I'll have like 5 or 6 instances ready. And tell me about a time when you dealt with a conflict. Have those stories banked and make sure that they're concrete stories with results that you can showcase. And I don't just mean good results. Please don't only demonstrate stories when you were a hero, because that's not real life. Okay. You want to also be able to demonstrate when you failed, but then what did you learn from it? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, have those stories ready, not memorized, because you don't want it to be mechanical. But something that I will mention is have a bunch of stories. So be like, okay, this is my leadership story, and I tell it every time. Because if you go to interview level 1 and then level 2 and level 3, you don't want to be telling the same story to all the different partners. And they're like, oh, Shivani just has this one story of her, I don't know, being an MBA class president.
Yeah, because I think I have a couple situations, but if you have to think of it on the fly, it's quite hard actually, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is a very
why-
hard part of the interview. Sorry, I recently just went through a bunch of interviews and I literally have a Word doc. It's called interview prep. And every time there's a random question that I get in an interview, I add it there. I'll think about it. I'll make notes. Not detailed, to your point, Shivani, but just, because in that moment you're already stressed and your brain just doesn't work. So it really helps to just have a bunch of scenarios that you can pull from.
Yeah, you had actually this person who I was speaking to, who did the McKinsey interview, and she made it. She had such an interesting technique where she also had an Excel spreadsheet, and her PEI question, she'd broken it down by STAR, and not like written out an essay, but like broken down some pointers that she could always like pull from. It's, as you had mentioned, it's really difficult to explain it on the fly, but if you have thought through it, if you have processed in that situation, what was the situation? What was the task that I had to complete? What was the action that I took? What were the results? And what was my learning? It's way better to be able to express yourself that way. Great. I saw somebody's hand.
That was a mistake.
No, all good. Okay. I think it's really good. This is a great gem, and I really hope that all of you will be able to use it in any interview moving forward. Look, it doesn't have to be a PEI question. It will be a, hey, tell me about a time when you failed question, and then you can use the exact same methodology. So I hope that all of you will lean into this. Okay, we're going to jump into casing a little bit, and hopefully all of you have been really on top of your strategy and a little bit of accounting, maybe, oof, not great. But today we're going to go through a really high level of how to do a case interview. Luann.
Hi, sorry, just one back. When giving those examples of, the situations you've been in, how recent should they be? Because, you might not have like an experience every 12 months that like matches every single thing.
No, 100%. I don't think they have to be like really recent, as long as you can show that you learned something from it and now you've been applying that in your life. In fact, a lot of people also ask me if the answers have to be work related. They don't have to be. They can even be an example from your MBA experience, right? You guys have gone through a pressure cooker of 2 years where you've had team conflicts, you've had personal conflicts, you've had time to lead others. Use your MBA stories as well. Okay. But even in work situations, I mean, anything that helps you explain that you were able to go through this process and learn from it, that's all that matters. I don't think it has to be super recent. Yeah. But it would, I think it would be pretty awkies if we're telling like high school stories.
Yeah.
But you do you, like if it was a deeply transformative moment for you, I mean, please share that story if you can really flesh it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Okay, shall we jump into it? All right, so what are they actually testing in a case interview? Why are we doing case interviews? Why not just like a normal interview? What can't I glean from just a personality question interview?
Problem solving, maybe?
Right? Like, I mean, you might be able to tell me a star story about when you solved a problem, but I don't know if it's real. I haven't seen your step-by-step process in action, right? So absolutely problem solving. What else?
I would say it's an interview where they want to see you in action. How quickly can you do the math? How quickly can you identify specific elements? How quickly can you actually draw lines and pull them together and come to a solution, whether right or wrong, but your ability to do that.
Yeah, maybe even your okay, somebody said it in the comments, the methodology or the frameworks that you even use in your own mind to get to a solution. So how do you go about going through this process? That's what they also want to see. Anybody else? Earlier, somebody said this previously, and then it wasn't on that slide, but I think decision making is a key thing that they're also obviously testing for. They want to see in that moment that after 30 minutes under pressure and you having done a bunch of mental math, at the end of the interview, can you give me a concrete one-line solid decision? And many people struggle with this, guys. In our day-to-day jobs, we struggle with it when our boss says, okay, just tell me what to do. Like, you've done all the analysis. What is your recommendation? We're like, I don't want to have to make this decision. But as a consultant, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions. And that's what they're testing for. Okay, Goodwill also says process followed, step-by-step, logic, absolutely. Okay, so problem solving, we've already talked about this. Ability to drive discussions. Guys, every day at your client site, nobody else is driving the discussions. Your client isn't driving the discussions. You have to as a consultant. And in your consulting interviews, most consulting interviews are actually interviewee led. So the interviewer is going to read the problem statement to you. And from that moment on, you guys are going to own the interview. For the next hour, you're going to be talking. You're going to be asking questions on data you need to solve this problem. And they want to be able to see that real time, that you can do that at a client site. And we're going to put that in practice real time as well. They want to be able to see your quantitative skills, guys. I mean, some of you mentioned this, your ability to do quick math. Okay, I'm not talking about doing long division or like integer or integrals real time, but I mean like quick math, quick profit and loss calculations, quick market sizing calculations. You're not going to have a calculator there, and that's fine. They still want to be able to see how do you do math in a complex situation in a way that still makes sense. Also, quantitative skills aren't just doing math. What about reading graphs, analyzing data? They might give you real time a bunch of graphs from a client, and you might have to pull insights from that. And that's really key quantitative skill as well. Guys, business judgment. I mean, a lot of us, when we do our MBA, are engineers, okay, or from other professions. We might be great engineers, we might be great marketers, but we might have really bad business judgment because we've never been in a business environment. And that is what a consultant needs to bring to the table as well. Yes, you can do all the math in the world and present me a recommendation. But if I'm the CFO of this company and this recommendation makes no sense, it's impossible to implement, it's so expensive, I'm going to say, sorry, you have no business judgment. This is a ludicrous solution for our industry. Okay, so key to showcase business judgment as well. As client skills, what might be a good client skill that I want to be able to demonstrate through my case interview? We said communication, but what does that mean?
I think EQ, like understanding, reading body language and that type of thing.
Yes, yeah. What else?
You also want to ask the right questions so you get as much information as you need to help them solve the right problems.
Absolutely. Guys, the second you walk in the door to a client and here's a consultant, they're going to inundate you with data. Okay, they're literally going to be like, here's like 20 years of our files and boxes in this room. Good luck, right? You as a consultant need to be able to ask key questions to get to the right solution. Okay, these are also client skills. We talked about this when we did casing as well. Garbage in equals garbage out. You need to be able to discern the red herrings, remove all of the stuff that's actually just mud. Get out of the weeds, see the big picture. Guys, this is the final thing that I'm going to say on here is, and it's so key, and especially as MBA candidates, and especially as older business professionals, which all of us are, we're not just university grads now. All of us have egos, and we have serious egos, okay? So when you're in an interview, in especially this format, the consulting firms want to know that you are coachable. And how this is going to happen is that as you're going through the case, you are going to fuck up, okay? It's inevitable. Pardon my French. You will hit a wall, okay? And in that moment, the consulting firm needs to see that instead of getting defensive and angry or frustrated, you were able to take a pause, take a breath, and say, wow, thank you for that insight, interviewer. I appreciate that. Let me take your feedback, put it in my framework, and then give you a better result. Okay, they want to be able to see that if they put you in front of a client, if the client is a difficult client, if the client keeps putting walls against you, that you are still able to be coachable and that you're able to be agile in any situation. So guys, this is really key. Don't take those moments in your consulting interviews to defend yourself and try to showcase your knowledge. That is the moment to just accept feedback and say, wow, thank you for that insight. Let me see what I can do with it. This is key. I know you'll forget it in the moment. It'll be really overwhelming. You're worried you've screwed up the entire interview. No, you haven't. It doesn't matter. As long as you can accept that feedback and move on to the next step, you can still redeem yourself. Okay. Are you guys ready? Like now we're going to do step by step of how I would tackle a case. I'm getting excited and nervous. All right. This is how I would do it step by step. You don't have to do it this way. You can come up with your own methodology. But this is maybe my recommendation. Okay. Cool. You don't have to make notes. Maybe like at the end of this, I'll just put it up and you can take a screenshot for yourself. And then when we practice cases, you'll see how it goes real time. Okay. So now you're sitting across your interviewer, your fit and PEI is done, or maybe it's later. This is just about the case. This is just the case interview. It might be 45 minutes to an hour. It's self-contained and it's timed. Okay. So you guys have to manage your own time within that case. And you have to run the case. And I'm going to show you how. Okay. So first of all, your interviewer is going to come in and they're going to read a problem statement to you. Okay. XYZ is our client. They've been for 20 years. They're a big mining company and now they want to buy another mine in another country. What would your recommendation be? Literally, it can be something as simple as that. It could be 2 statements, just like that. Okay. Boom, the interview has started. Okay. You need to listen carefully in that moment. Nothing else. Guys, your mind needs to be nowhere else except listening to what that statement is because it won't be provided to you in writing. The interviewer will read it out to you, okay? You can be taking notes, but when you're taking notes, be present with what they're saying, okay? Take notes, bank the statement immediately, okay? You've taken your notes, you read your notes, you look up, and you repeat a short tweet-length summary of what you've heard about the case back to the interviewer. This is very key because A, it shows that you were listening, and B, it's an opportunity to get back on track if you heard the wrong thing. And by the wrong thing, I mean, you were trying to address the wrong problem. Okay, so in this instance, you might say, thank you for that. So our client is a mining company and they're hoping to expand into XYZ geography. And you would like a recommendation on this. Am I correct? Okay. Did I understand the problem correctly? Alternatively, you might say something like, oh, our client is a mining company and they want to expand into a new business. Okay, because you heard it incorrectly. That might happen. And then the interviewer will correct you if you're on the wrong track. And they'll say, no, sorry, we don't want to expand into a new business. We want to expand into a new geography. At that moment, you say, oh, thank you for that insight. Sorry, I misheard you. Let me bank that really quickly. And this is not a moment to say, but I thought you said new product. Okay, no. Thank you for that insight. Let me bank that. At this moment, I'm going to tell you guys something. The interviewers, by the time you've made it to an interview, they're already invested in your success. They want you to win and they want you to succeed. They want the best of the best working for their company. So the whole interview, they're not there to sabotage you. They're there to help you through the process. So accept their feedback and know that it's a gift. and that they want you on their team already, and do whatever it takes to get on their team. Okay, when you have that mindset, you guys are going to ace it. They're there to help you, the interviewer. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to ask if you understood the gist of the case correctly. Your interviewer might correct you, might not. Cool. Now you're going to ask clarifying questions. So it might be things like, oh, okay, so our mining client wants to expand into Africa. Can I confirm, do they only operate in Australia? Do they already have certain international businesses? Do they already have some businesses in Africa? Have they operated in Africa before in the past? You can ask any number of clarifying questions at this point. Okay. Once you've asked all of your clarifying questions, this is when you ask anything that you might need to succeed at the case. You might even ask, but make sure it's relevant to the case. This is not a point to be like, have they considered going into the peanut business? I mean, that's completely irrelevant to our mining client, okay? And don't just ask questions because you want to sound smart. Guys, I know this because I'm an MBA candidate, or I was. We often just ask questions because we want to prove that we are intelligent or that we're listening. This is not the time to do that. You have limited amount of time. Ask questions that are actually relevant to the case. Don't ask flex questions that you already know the answers to. So now you've asked all of the questions that you might have pertaining to the case, okay, any clarifying questions. At this point, you say, thank you so much for those answers. Would it be okay if I took a minute to gather my thoughts? Guys, this is key, okay? Especially as overachievers, we're all gonna wanna jump straight into the case. Wrong, okay? As an interviewer, that shows me that you do not take the time to really process the information. You wanna jump the gun and you wanna just give the first answer that comes to your mind, even if it's not the right answer. So ask for that minute, and every interviewer will say, yes, of course, because they want to give you the time to build out your framework. Now you're going to start. In that minute, you're going to take your pen and paper in front of you, and in that quiet minute, you don't have to talk them through what you're doing right now. In that quiet minute, take that minute to really flesh out your situation, okay? So you might use an N number of tools in this instance. So let's keep going with this mining imaginary example. I might say, I want to start with PESTLE, okay? Which is whatever, like political, economic, and social, technological, environmental, and legislative framework. I might go with something like that. Okay, I might go with Borders 5 Forces. I might go with any framework, but you don't have to use a framework. Either way, you have to flesh out how you're going to approach this situation in that quiet minute. Guys, draw diagrams, okay, because this is what's going to help you build the case moving forward. Okay, you've gathered your thoughts, and you've now come up with a framework. And from this moment on, you are leading the case. Okay, so you might start with something like, okay, so I would love to go with this PESTLE framework, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with the political landscape. Have we done any research on the political landscape in Africa, in the country that we want to enter? What information that we have on hand? Okay, then your interviewer will provide you with information if they have it, or they might say, sorry, we do not have that information. Okay, but it is your responsibility from this moment on to lead the case and ask any questions for any data that you need.
So how long should you take to gather your thoughts and stuff?
To come up with your framework, I would recommend no more than 1 to 2 minutes. Yeah. And we'll practice this real time as well in a case just now. Okay. As we're doing this, you're going to ask for data as you go. And guys, always ask for data first. Don't make any assumptions. Okay, the interviewer will have X amount of data, or they will have no data, but you must always ask. And you might ask for data. Luann, I see your hand. I'm coming to you. You'll ask for data, and the interviewer might say, yes, I have that data. It might just be a number, or they might say, hey, yes, I have this data. Pull out like a graph to hand to you. Okay, can be any of those situations, or they might share it with you on the screen. Okay, but ask for data. Don't make assumptions first. Always ask first. Luann.
Hi, thanks. So if you've, for example, if you've chosen the PESTLE analysis and you're asking for the data and like they don't have the data, do you change your framework?
Well, okay, it depends. Maybe you're going through PESTLE step by step and like, okay, political, they might say, oh, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. We're not concerned about that. Maybe we want to focus on the economic framework. So they will like send you down a path they want you to focus on. Or they might say something like, ooh, I don't think you're on the right track. What our client really just wants to know is how much is it going to cost them? And can you give us like some sort of financial framework? Okay. Yeah, great question. Okay, so remember guys, now we've asked for as much data as we need. At this point, don't just ask for data without clarifying why you're asking for data, because this also helps the interviewer check if you're on the right track. If you're just asking for random political data, they're like, ooh, we don't think you're on the right track, then I would actually correct my interviewee and say, yeah, I don't think that's relevant to this case. Maybe you want to focus on something else. So always explain why you're asking for a certain data point. Okay, you might say, oh, what's the population of the US? Do you have that data available? And then they'll say, why are you worried about the US? We're focusing on an Africa strategy, right? So they'll bring you back to where you need to be. Okay, now that you've asked for all the possible data and they're like, cool, we have this data, we don't have this data. Now it's time for you to make assumptions. Only now. Okay, that's only after you've exhaustively asked for all possible data. So now you make assumptions, but if you ever make an assumption, ever, list it on your little paper and explain to your interviewer why you've made this assumption. Okay, I want to know the population of South Africa because I've decided to go with a South African strategy for this mining company. My interviewer doesn't have this data, so I know that South Africa is roughly like, I don't know, 1/7 the size of the US. I know the US population is 350 million. Okay, let me just go with a 50 million population strategy for South Africa, and that's how you justify your assumption. Okay, this was a really wild example because I think US first and then I think South Africa second. You might think South Africa first and say, okay, South Africa has 50 million people, US is like roughly 5 times. Okay, I'm going to go with 250 million. What number you go with doesn't matter. Okay, it needs to, I just need to show that, or I need to see that you've used good business judgment and you've used a good reason to come up with an assumption and not just a thumb suck. Right? Fair? Okay, now that you have all of your data, you're going to start working through your math. And guys, you know how you had that silent minute earlier to do your framework? From now on, you're not going to have silent minutes. If you do need a silent minute, just ask for it and say, okay, can I just have a minute to work through my math? But don't work through your math quietly unless you've asked for it. If you're going to start working through your math, start working through your math verbally. What I mean by this is, okay, we're going to do a profit calculation. So profit is revenue minus costs. Okay, my revenue calculation is 400,000 Rand, and I know that my costs are going to be about 350,000 Rand. Therefore, I know my profit is 50,000. Okay, I need to calculate a profit margin. So I need to divide it by XYZ. So you literally walk them through all the math. You might have done it on your paper, but you have to speak through it. Because remember, the interviewer can't see your math being scribbled on your piece of paper, especially if it's online. And even if they are there in person, you need to be able to walk them through it step by step so they can stop you and say, oh, Shivani, I think you missed a 0 there. Okay, and that might happen, guys. Maybe you're in a big rush doing your calcs and you've screwed up a calc. They might say, hey, I think maybe the assumption that you went with for your US population is a bit low. Do you want to increase it by 10%? Okay, so they will give you direction. And that's why it's really important to speak through your math. Sorry. Susiko says, kindly clarify at what point is this interview taking place and who is leading the interview? What do you mean by at what point?
Yeah, hi Shivani.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand when would this kind of interview take place? So I'm just trying to get the context from your perspective. So that I try to understand the presentation better. Thank you.
Yeah, Susiko, sorry, I think if you missed the beginning of the presentation, these are standard consulting case interviews. So your first little bit of the interview will be personal experience interview, and then the second part of it, or the majority of it, is going to be a case interview. So a case will be provided to you. And the person leading the interview is going to be you, but the person interviewing you is either a consultant or a junior partner, or then finally a senior partner at the consulting firm that you are interviewing with.
Thanks, it's clear now.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now you're walking through your math verbally, and this is to make sure that your interviewer understands how you got to your number. Guys, imagine if you were just doing like a bunch of math and you're like, the answer is 40 million, but the interviewer has no idea how you got to that, right? And they can't even support you on your journey. And also you can never backtrack and change things and explain to them. So always walk through all of your math verbally. Okay. And now suppose you hit a dead end. Okay, you're like, oh man, this profit and loss calculation is not the right one I should have been doing. I should have actually been focusing on calculating the market size. That's okay. It might happen, but you need to switch tracks quickly and you need to tie a neat bow on it before you switch tracks. So you might say, oh, okay, dear interviewer, I've come up with this brilliant profit and loss calculation, but at this moment, I feel that to be able to understand my revenue better, I need to calculate the market size and see how big this opportunity is before I give you a better profit number. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to park this really quickly, and I'm going to move on to my market sizing calculation. All right. So you can switch tracks. It's absolutely fine, but just explain what you're doing and why you're doing it. All right, now suppose you've done your market sizing calculation and it's perfect, and you've then you've decided that, okay, it might be practical for us to capture 10% of this market. You use that 10% of the market to come up with your revenue. You do a new profit calculation. And you say, okay, based on my math, the profit is positive. It's not huge, but in the first year, it's already positive. If it's positive, it's definitely a go opportunity. Then you decide to go and make your concise and data-driven recommendation, okay? So, hi, based on all of our market sizing and profitability calculations, we do believe that entering the South African market for our mining client is a good idea. All right, so you've made a concise one-statement recommendation. We would recommend that our client enter the South African market based on our profitability and market sizing calculations. And then boom, literally that's it, guys. Do you see how tight and short that recommendation is? I don't want to hear a whole essay about why you're recommending things. I want to hear one line saying yes or no and why you made the yes or no recommendation, okay? Enter, do not enter. Invest, do not invest, okay? Something like that. It's always a binary, quick, short, tight statement. What makes a great interview is not to end there, okay? You might say, this is my recommendation. However, if it's okay with you, I would like to leave you with some recommended next steps for your client. And that's when you say, okay, we are entering the South African market. However, some next steps that I would recommend would be doing some more research on the political landscape, trying to understand what the upcoming elections might do for our investment. Boom, show them like next steps and insights that you're already thinking forward for your client. Don't just leave them at the recommendation. The recommendation that is right makes a good interview. A recommendation with next steps makes a great interview. All right. Okay. As mentioned, conclude with any other factors to consider. Okay, I know you guys hate this, and I know it's such a struggle, and we talked about this in casing also. A case never has a right answer. There's no one answer. There's no binary answer. Everybody's answer is going to be different because think about it. Everybody will make different assumptions. Everybody will round numbers differently. Everybody will do math differently. So there's never one right answer. There's only the best answer that you can provide in that moment, that you can justify with your actual approach, that it was methodical, that your answer is supported by the facts within the case, and that your assumptions were listed clearly. Okay, don't be pulling out random facts from your personal life. Okay, you can't say, oh, but I read in an article yesterday that the actual numbers for mining in South Africa are this. Unless you've clearly stated that you're bringing in that piece of data, I don't want to hear it if it's outside of the context. And then, as mentioned, guys, your recommendation, it cannot be an essay. You cannot faff. It needs to be, this is a go, this is a no-go recommendation, and why. Crisp, sharp, tight recommendation, right? And then I'm going to say this because a lot of people don't even know what they're doing. They're like going through the interview in a haze. They're just throwing MBA words in there and frameworks, and they don't really know what they're doing. And the interviewer will read right through that, because at the end, you might have come up with a nice answer and a crisp recommendation, but they'll throw in a wrench and say, okay, but what if we change our investment time frame to 5 years instead of 3 years? Can you now tell me what my return on investment will be? And then boom, if you don't know what you were doing for the last hour, if you just winged it, you will never be able to redo that calculation for yourself. So be very clear on your own approach. Okay. We're going to talk through what a typical process for an interview might look like. So we've talked about how to do it, but what this might practically look like. The beginning of the interview is going to be the situation, okay, so which is going to be read out to you by your interviewer, okay? And then you do what? You type notes, and then you repeat a quick tweet length summary of what the situation is to make sure everybody's on the same page. Step 2, you take a minute to develop your framework. Okay, quietly, and then you read out your framework to your client. You say, listen, I've decided to go with this framework, X, Y, Z. What do you think about that? The client say, okay, great, you're on the right track. We'd like to explore part C of your framework. Then you start fleshing it out. And then you start exploring that framework. I'm going to walk you through an example as well. Okay, so your client says, okay, that's great. Within profitability, we'd only like to explore the revenue part of this framework. Great, thank you. So that your interviewer has narrowed down the scope for you. Then come your quant questions, okay? No data provided. So in this instance, you might have to make a lot of assumptions, or you might have quant questions where data is provided. So they have given you all the numbers, and then you just have to do calcs. And then after you've done all of your quants, you're going to synthesize your findings, come up with your final numbers, tie a neat bow on it, and you will close with your crisp one-line recommendation. Guys, basically every interview is just this. You don't need to be daunted by, I don't know this industry, I don't know anything about mergers and acquisitions. As long as you kind of follow a basic formula and framework, you'll be able to ace anything. And that's what a consultant does. They can show up to any industry, and because of the frameworks or the mindset that they adopt, they can solve any problem, not because they're an expert in mining or telecoms, right? Okay, I want to just walk us through an example of what a framework development might be. Don't panic. This is actually really straightforward. Okay, so we talked about how profitability might be improved. If this was a profitability problem, I would build out for myself an issue tree that looks like this. Okay, so how can profitability be improved? Well, there's only one of two ways, fam. It's really binary. Okay, it's either that you need to increase your revenue or you need to decrease your costs. Okay, within revenue, how can I increase my revenue? Really binary. Either increase the number of goods sold or increase the average selling price. Okay, and then within this, how can I increase the number of goods sold? Okay, do I need to go into new geographies? Do I need to now start selling online because I only have shops? Do I need to expand my product categories? Do I need to expand my customer base? So straightforward, guys. It's like, this is it. This is casing. Okay, all of you should know this from MBA. How can I increase my average selling price? Okay, can I increase price on my current products, or can I introduce new products at a higher selling point? Same with all of your reducing costs, guys. Again, really basic MBA stuff. How can my cost of goods sold reduce? Can I reduce my purchasing costs? Can I negotiate better contracts with my suppliers? Can I reduce my manufacturing costs? Can I become more efficient in my processes? Okay, can I reduce my shipping costs? So on and so forth. Okay, this is an example of an issue tree that you might flesh out and you might present to your client. And guys, I'm not even expecting that you go all the way down here in your first minute. Okay, remember when you're developing your framework, you might actually just develop to this point and say, listen, interviewer, I know we have a profitability problem. I've thought about revenue and costs, and I think these are some ways that we can focus on revenue and cost. So that's your level 3 of your issue tree right here. Okay. Because I heard from our client that you want to maybe focus on a new geography, I think this is the area that we're playing in. Okay, and then you start fleshing out that part of your framework. That's when you go into exploration framework. But guys, I don't know have you guys had experience developing issue trees? Like, is that something that you guys do in class, or? Don't worry. I'll give you some.
Not specifically, but it feels like a very logical way of thinking.
Yes. Yeah. I'm happy to share some more resources on how to do issue trees as well, because this is a great way to solve any problem in life, even if not consulting, but like in a business, in your company, issue trees, bam. Okay. The key to making a good issue tree or framework is that it needs to be MECE. Okay, we've talked about MECE before. Who remembers what MECE is?
Mutually exclusive, something.
Yes.
Collectively exhaustive?
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you, yes.
Absolutely. Okay. All frameworks that you develop, all trees you develop must always be mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. What this means is that there's no overlap. Okay, they're independent of each other, and that collectively they cover all the issues that might be in this company. So let me give you this example in how can profitability be improved. We know that revenues and costs are independent of each other. They're mutually exclusive, okay? But collectively, revenues and costs cover everything that feeds into profit. So they're collectively exhaustive, all right? However, you might say, but Shivani, how will I know how to be MECE? I knew you would ask this question, so I've put together some examples of how you can be MECE, or I've stolen this off the internet, because that would be my natural next question, is how can I always know that my frameworks are MECE, or what I'm presenting to my client is MECE? Also, if you just drop that, I want to make sure my stuff is MECE, it's so impressive, right? You guys already know MECE. Wow, you're one step ahead of everybody else. Okay, so you can be MECE at all costs if you just follow one of these 5 techniques. Okay, number 1 is that it's some sort of equation. So, right, we already use this as an example. Profit equals revenue minus cost. You're always going to be mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Number two, you might follow some sort of process, okay? And this can also be a manufacturing process, right? So imagine if you were going, or a value chain, all the way from beginning to end, everything is independent of each other, but collectively it covers the whole value chain. Next might be some sort of conceptual framework. So we've used this example where we said, okay, we might use PESTLE, we might use 4 Ps, product, portfolio, placement, price, right? That's 4 Ps. You might use the 3 Cs, customer, company, competition. Using any framework ensures that you're also MECE. Then the fourth one, which is actually really easy if you're thinking about products, is segmentation. So you might do this by age, okay? So if I'm doing 0 to 21, or 0 to 20, 21 to 40, you know that it's mutually exclusive, but they're collectively covering all age ranges. You might even do it by geography. So if you want to do new market, then you do by continent, bam. And then the final one that for me sometimes is the easiest is the opposites, yin yang, okay? Supply versus demand, internal, external, any opposite words are also a great way to be MECE. Guys, you'll have this resource available to you, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this today, or frameworks, because I want to go over the casing part of it. But this is a great way to think in general about solving any problem, is to be MECE. Okay, I want to leave you with some top tips before we get to our first break. Guys, if the last time you did math was in high school, I mean, fam, you got to practice, okay? Seriously practice. And well, hopefully some of you have to take your GMAT and then you have some practice there, but mental math, everything is going to be math there and you can't use a calculator, okay? But again, guys, this is not crazy math like divisions and crazy stuff, but just basic math, okay? Addition, subtraction, equations, algebra. Okay. That was the way I would do a case as shown to you guys, but you need to develop your own method to do a case. And the way you're going to do that is because you're actually going to befriend somebody from this exact course. You're going to DM somebody after this and be like, fam, will you be my casing buddy? And with this casing buddy, you're going to practice. I'm going to tell you at the end of today's presentation how much I recommend that you practice before you even go to your first round interview. Okay. As you're practicing with your casing buddy, you're going to learn not only from yourself and your own mistakes, but you're going to learn from how your partner performs. You're going to pick up great tips. Yeah. And each of you are going to switch playing interviewer, interviewee, and that's how you're going to practice. I've already mentioned this. Guys, only make assumptions if your interviewer said, sorry, we do not have that piece of data. Never, ever again. Otherwise, should you want to make assumptions? Because then they're going to see that at your client site, this consultant is likely to just make assumptions instead of asking the client for real data. This one is so tough and impossible to do for a lot of MBA candidates. They always want to like shove everything into a framework because it's a cool flex, you know, then you can show that you know some frameworks, you know PESTLE, you know Porter's 5 Forces. Guys, in that moment, if it just doesn't fit into a framework, don't do that. Just use your common sense instead. And remember that not everybody who's gone through this interview has even done an MBA. They might not even know frameworks, and yet they can probably do better than you because they might not be bogged down by frameworks. Okay, go MECE, we've already talked about this. Mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Your recommendations, your key issues, all of these, always MECE. As mentioned, also, a lot of you are going to be doing your interviews virtually for the first or second rounds. Guys, because it's online, it's a bit more complex. You can't read body language, you don't know what you're doing. Just feel free to ask for a little bit more time, the thinking time, right? Can I have another minute to just think about this? Can I have a minute to collect my thoughts? It's fine. Especially online. And I know it feels really awkward because the silence is just deafening. Don't worry. They're seeing that you are mature, that you're taking a moment to collect your thoughts and come up with a really good framework. Online especially, I think it's so key to over-communicate rather than under-communicate. Speak through everything. When you're drawing things on your piece of paper, guys, the other person can't see that. Speak through absolutely everything. You can say, listen, I'm thinking Porter's 5 Forces, but I might not use that framework. I'm actually going to choose not to use a framework in this instance and just go with what feels good to me. Okay, you can say that. And then for your math, remember to walk through every step and your entire approach. And guys, I'm going to say this. If all of you are feeling really like tech wizardy, your interview is not an opportunity for you to try to flex that in front of an interviewer because you don't know what's going to go wrong. So don't try to put together slides to explain your answers. Don't try to use like graphic softwares, unless of course you have like one of those, I don't know, styluses that is like a pen, you could use that. I recommend, because I love pen and paper. Instead of using pen and paper in an online format, I would recommend using like a soft tip fine marker because it's easier to see. And then if you're walking them through your calcs and you're showing a piece of paper, it's easier for them to read than just a pen. That would be my recommendation. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute break, if that's okay with all of you. And then we're gonna come back and watch a real Bain interview that's only 10 minutes together. I wanna show you guys, because I know all of you are still confused. You're like, I still don't know what a case interview is. We're gonna watch it real time, 10-minute short video, and then we'll analyze it together and see what he did well and what he didn't do well. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay, be back in 10 minutes. Oh, not 10:20. I would like for us to be back at 10:16, if that's okay with everybody. And we're gonna get started sharp with the video. Okay,
Perfect.
brilliant. Then play it. Let's go ahead and have a listen. Technical difficulty.
Shiv?
Hi,
Hi, I'm Carol.
Shiv, nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. Thanks so much for making the time to come in today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again for being here today. Really appreciate you making the time. We're going to be diving right into a case interview.
Sounds good.
Great. So I'll be reading a prompt from the computer and then we can chat through and solve a business problem together.
Okay.
Today, our client is Private Equitas, which is a global private equity firm based in New York City. They recently acquired a conglomerate media company, and we have been asked to help maximize their investment. The business unit in focus for today is called PrintCo, which is in the business of printing menus for restaurants in the US. They have revenues of $25 million annually. Private Equitas is a bit concerned about the future of PrintCo's industry because sales have been rapidly declining at 10% per year for the past 5 years. As a result, our client has asked us to assess the attractiveness of an adjacent market, electronic restaurant menus. So think menus that you could see on an iPad at a table. PrintCo would design and sell electronic menu interfaces to restaurants, but would not be building the hardware themselves. The key question today is, should PrintCo enter the electronic restaurant menus market?
So if you don't mind, I would love to take a few seconds just to gather my thoughts.
Absolutely, go for it.
So I think when we're addressing this first question of what factors we can consider, there are kind of 4 main factors that I would want to think about. First and foremost, I think we would want to think about profitability. So will it be profitable for PrintCo to enter this market? I think that is the most important question that we'd want to analyze. And then secondarily, I think we should think about, is this market growing? If it's growing, then that makes it a more attractive market. Second, we'd want to think about the competition that is in the market already. So is it going to be more difficult for us to earn a profit because there are already existing players? And then lastly, I'd want to think about barriers to entry. So are there any barriers that would prevent us from getting into the market? Or are there any barriers to entry that once we are in the market would help us make our position more defensible? Are there any others that you think I should be considering?
No, that all makes sense. Really appreciate you laying those out. Would be great to dive a little bit deeper into the first one, profitability, which you highlighted as most important.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think that sort of takes us into our second question. So when I think about profitability, the framework that I usually use to think about it is that we have revenue minus costs equals profit. Since we're kind of moving into the second question here, I think we can focus on revenue first. Is there any information that we have on price?
Yes, so we've done some research and think that we would likely be able to price the e-menus at $40.
And then in terms of volume, are there any assumptions that we would want to use?
So on volume, would be great if you could actually lay out some of the things that you would want to consider to estimate the volume of e-menus in the market per year.
Okay. So if I were to think about the volume of this market, there are kind of a few steps that I would want to go through to get to a volume number. So I think I would start with the total number of restaurants in the US. And I just wanted to confirm that the US is the market that we're thinking about.
Yes, that's correct.
After that, I think I'd want to think about what percentage of restaurants would actually use an e-menu. So that would be kind of step 2. Then I think I'd want to think about, for each of these restaurants, how many menus would they actually use? I would think that not all restaurants would be willing to shift from menu to e-menu in a given year. So we may want to make an assumption about sort of what percentage of restaurants would actually replace their menus in a given year.
Makes sense.
So I think those are kind of the main assumptions that I would want to make. Should I make my own assumptions, or is there any information already?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk through some of them. So in terms of total restaurants in the US, we've done some research and it looks like there's about 600,000 restaurants in the market.
Okay. Do we have a number for what percentage of those would consider using an e-menu?
Yes, so we've done some research here as well, and it looks like, not all restaurants would be interested right away. A lot of them will continue to use their printed menus. So it's a small portion at 5%.
And how many e-menus would each restaurant purchase?
About 30 per restaurant.
Are we assuming that all restaurants would replace their menus with e-menus in a given year?
The frequency of replacement is once every 2 years.
So in a given year, half of the restaurants are replacing. Okay, so 50%. So if we start to do the math here, it would be 600,000 restaurants that are across the US. 5% of those are considering using an e-menu. So that takes us to, just doing my math here, 30,000 restaurants that would consider using an e-menu. And then about half of those restaurants are replacing their menus in a given year. So that takes us down further to 15,000 restaurants. And each of those restaurants is going to be purchasing 30 e-menus. So that gets us to 450,000 e-menus across the US. So that kind of gives us our total market volume. And if we go back to our price, we have price of $40 times 450,000 e-menus gets us to a total market size of 18 million, if my math is right. So we have $18 million of total market size. And do we have a sense of maybe a market share that Printco would be trying to obtain?
Yes, so we've done some research and noticed that most of the players in the market are quite small and think that Printco would actually be able to take a good amount of share. We're estimating 20% share.
So 20% share in year one of the $18 million total market would take us to $3.6 million in revenue in the first year. So that gets to our revenue answer, which was our second question. But if we wanted to think a little bit deeper about the profitability, do we have a sense of how much it would cost?
We expect annual costs of $3 million per year.
So we are looking at about $600,000 of profit in the e-menu segment in year one. I think that sort of answers our first two questions. As I move into the third question, are there any other pieces that I missed or questions that I should be answering?
No, so we've talked through the actual revenues and the profits at stake. Would love to understand what additional things would you think about before making a recommendation?
So I think that sort of takes us back to our first question. So if I go back to my initial 4 items that I wanted to consider, we wanted to think about profit, which we've talked about a little bit. Additionally, we talked about growth. So we'd want to know, is this market growing? I think from my experience, it probably is. I would want to think about competition. So are there already any entrenched players in the market that are already delivering e-menus to restaurants? And then lastly, barriers to entry. I would want to think about, are there any factors that are going to make it harder for us to enter the market that we haven't considered? Also, are there any factors that will allow us to defend our position more closely? And an example I could think of is the relationships with the restaurants. Is that going to make it easier for us to maintain the market share that we're estimating at 20%? So I think those are kind of the high-level top priority factors that I would want to consider.
All makes sense. Thank you for talking through those. So the leadership team from both Printco and Private Equitas are here now, and they would love to hear your final recommendation on if they should enter the e-menu market.
So our high-level recommendation is that Printco enter the e-menu market. We've done an initial analysis of the profitability, and we are estimating that Printco will generate around $3.6 million in revenue in year one, which would only cost $3 million. So we're estimating an year one profit or an annual profit of $600,000. I think some next steps that we want to look into are, one, whether or not the market is growing, what the existing competition in the market are, and whether or not there are significant barriers to entry in the market.
Sounds great. Well, that was the case.
Well, that was the case. What do you guys think? Any initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think the beginning was so fast. You have to really pay so much attention to get all the details and stuff. And then the second thing, he definitely could see he was following a framework. Like he knew what to do, at which moment and stuff. So
Yeah. What else? What else did you do really well, guys? When we think about all the things we've talked about so far.
Talking through his calculations and voicing his questions and asking questions.
Yeah, it's like he was literally speaking everything he was thinking, like step by step, and it was super clear, right? He did a really good job of that. What else was really good?
It kind of like required, or he asked for clarification where he didn't understand.
Yes, absolutely. He was super I mean, he doesn't seem like a humble guy. I think Shiv seems very cocky, but he did ask for clarification when needed. So that was brilliant. Guys, did you notice now? Do you see what I mean by interviewee-led interview? He led the whole case. He asked for what he needed. He set out the framework. He was the one leading this interview. The interviewer was barely asking him anything. She was only providing him data when he asked for it. So this is what a consulting case interview actually looks like in practice. That was only a 10-minute interview. You can imagine a whole hour of him breaking down every single one of the 4 areas he wanted to explore, right? I also thought that his recommendation at the end was really crisp, guys. Did you notice? He said, I do think we should enter this market of e-menus, and it is because we're gonna in the first year have a $600,000 profit, right? And then boom, and then he said, but some next steps are boom, boom, boom. That was also for me really crisp. What do you think Shiv could have done better?
Only for me, I have to admit, he played around with his pen. He slouched at one bit, and that would have been quite disturbing.
Yeah, it's so irritating. And I've watched this video like at least 12 times, guys. And every time I'm like, stop playing with your pen, Shiv. Yeah, it's horrible for sure. So great point, Henri. Maybe something to notice for yourselves is, guys, do you have some tics? Do you have some nervous things that you do with your hands or face or feet? Just watch out for those, because at the end of the day, you want your interviewer's eyes and ears to be on your content and your frameworks and your ideas, not on the tics. Brilliant insight. Okay. What else?
Perhaps also just a small recommendation to be made, and of course he doesn't have any benchmarking information, but he stated the profit in dollar terms, but not percentage. So it's always easier to relate percentage-wise.
Yes, absolutely, Henri. That's a great insight too, right? It's easier for us to process information from a percentage standpoint. Great, thank you. Okay, so all of you are in love with Shiv and wish you could be as good as Shiv. I'm just kidding. Okay, should we go ahead and practice a real case together? Are you guys ready? Yeah? Okay. If you don't have a notebook and pen and paper right now, go get one immediately while I get this slide pulled up for you. Can you guys see my big slide? Yes, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready? Remember, I'm only going to read it to you once, fam. Bank your points. Don't worry, it's not going to be a hard case. We'll do it. This is just a warm-up case, and then I'll send you guys hundreds of cases to practice if you'd like to. This is a warm-up case, so we can all get on the same page. Okay, live from London comes our case. You're in London. You're having friend with Tumi. Hey, Tumi, from university. She's your friend from university, and Tumi is looking for some business advice. Tumi knows you're doing your MBA. She's super impressed. She's so happy you're studying at Stellenbosch. Wow, what a great business school. Good job. Okay, so she comes to you and she wants your advice. She's thinking of opening up a coffee shop in Cambridge, England, which is a large university city an hour and a half away from London. She sees potential in this business, but she wants your help in determining whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. What do you think?
How many people are in Cambridge?
Raul, you failed immediately. You're already asking me question. You have to remember, you have to repeat
Oh,
a
yeah.
summary of the case to me. See, this is what I meant by MBA candidates immediately. Missing information, need to know everything. And you're already asking questions without even developing a framework. Okay. Let's start again. All right. Can somebody repeat like a tweet length summary of what this case is? Anybody? Don't read these slides. Okay. What are we solving for? What's happening here?
Should or shouldn't she open a coffee shop?
Bam! That's it, right? That's literally the crux of this case is, should Dumi open a coffee shop in Cambridge? Cool. I know it sounds easy, but fam, you could have derived some other insights if this was a more complex case. But in this instance, absolutely, should Dumi open a coffee shop in Cambridge or not is the question we're here to answer. All right. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute because none of you asked for it, but you're going to ask for 1 or 2 minutes of silence to develop your framework. Okay, so take a minute and think about how you would answer this question for Tumi. What are considerations? What are important factors in answering this question? Draw out like a diagram, a framework, anything. You have about 20 more seconds. All right, time's up. Who wants to take a gander? There's no wrong answers, none, except for Raul, who just jumped into it. That was his fault. I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. Okay. Some people are going to drop things in the chat. You're also welcome to walk me through it. But Simpiwe says, is there a coffee shop market in Cambridge? Okay, so is that your framework? Is that...
I was thinking maybe the 3 C's, like customer, company, and competition. What is already there and how you want to set it up, and maybe how to communicate it or introduce it into the market or something.
Yes, I like that. Bank that one for sure. Anybody else? Go with a different strategy or anything else?
I would try to go with the Oosterwolde business model canvas to see what's to be there, what the value proposition is, and market segments that you want to target, and then with the cost structure that accommodates that.
Nice. Okay. Also another good way to look at it. Any other last ones? There's no wrong answers, but all of you, I mean, in this room, we're 23 of us. I should see at least 20 different frameworks. Goodwill says develop a customer journey plan. Okay, interesting. I'd be keen to hear more about that. Goodwill, do you want to walk us through what you mean?
So I'm saying, okay, she wants to open a coffee shop, but now she'll need to understand how she will now have a touch point with these customers that she wants to cater. And that now will now assist in terms of creating the framework.
Okay. And can you walk us through how you would, what your next step would be if that's what your approach is?
So first to understand who are the customers that she wants to cater. Of course, it's a university, but maybe now in this case, it means it will be students, okay? And now what type of maybe coffee that the student will need. So maybe the student will need a coffee maybe to stay awake, to be having more energy during the day. And now that framework will start from there. And then now she can also, maybe we can link maybe like a SWOT analysis to say, what will be the opportunities in this type of students? And of course, that we're talking about one university, but you might need to say, can I have maybe different locations in the university where I can cater this coffee and so forth there?
Goodwill, if you were opening a coffee shop and I was telling you about a customer journey, what would your first question to me be if you were the person opening the coffee shop?
The customer needs. What will be the need and the price of this particular coffee that I want to?
Yeah, but don't even think about the customer. You are the business owner. You're about to start this business. What is your number one question going to be if you're trying to start a business?
What investment is required?
Yeah, or maybe like, am I going to make money? It could be as simple as that, right? Like, is this going to be a business that generates value? Value for me is profit. Value for the customer eventually can be great coffee. But as a business owner, as to me, your basic question will be, is this going to turn a profit, right? So maybe we want to start thinking of those ends, because the things you're talking about are super key, but maybe much later down in the case, right? But upfront, we want to start thinking about something as simple as this, guys, okay? How big is this opportunity? Some of you mentioned, like, what is the market size, okay? The considerations to open and run a coffee shop, really basic, like, do I know enough about, is this going to be a profitable operation even? And then finally, I might consider, okay, what is my go-to-market strategy? And somebody did mention this, like, how am I going to get the coffee to my customer? That might be the last thing I consider. But it can be something as simple as this. You see, it doesn't have to be really complex 4 Ps, 3 Cs, 12 Ds frameworks. It can be so simple, okay? So you say, look, when I'm thinking about opening a coffee shop for Tumi, I'm thinking about these 3 things. But first, I want to start with, I really need Tumi to understand what are the key factors to actually opening and running a coffee shop. Okay, so that is where I'm going to run my focus. Okay, what that looks like is Tumi needs to know whether she can make money at the end of the month through this business. And it's as simple as profit equals revenue minus cost. Guys, always, if you can, like, try to bring it back to profitability, because that's quantifiable. Okay, things like customer needs, customer satisfaction, you can't bring that data into the case. It's rarely quantifiable, and there's rarely enough data. So try to bring it to these things, right? Quants. So I'm saying, okay, Tumi wants to open a business, and the framework that I've decided to go with is what is key to running a coffee shop business. And the fundamentals to any business is profit equals revenue minus cost. Okay, really for that, also really straightforward. Revenue is quantity times price. Cost is fixed cost times variable cost, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is where I'm at, really high level. I've developed my issue tree, okay? See, now I've already come to an issue tree and I've already banked something cool for my client and for my interviewer to see. Easy winnings. Okay, so you show your proposed framework to Tumi. We're continuing on with the case, all right? She really likes it. She's like, wow, I'm so glad you paid for that MBA and you've become so smart. You know all about profit and loss. Good work, amazing. But now she's especially interested in how big this opportunity is, okay? She sees the money, she sees that it's possibly dollar signs, possibly pounds, but she wants to know how big are these pounds, okay? How big is this opportunity? And she wants to best estimate how much coffee she can sell in her coffee shop. She knows the market probably includes commuters, visitors, etc. But for now, she only wants to focus on Cambridge residents alone, okay? To keep this problem really simple. How are you going to be able to help Tumi estimate the size of the market? Okay, guys, now hopefully light bulbs are switching on and all of you are immediately like, okay, boom, we've gotten to a market sizing part of our case. All of you know how to market size. Okay, let's do it together anyway. Cool. Tumi wants to know how big is the market. Any takers, or do you guys want a minute to draw out a market sizing framework for yourself?
Yeah, how many people live in Cambridge and how many drink coffee from these people? And then you see how much competition there is, so how much actually you'll be able to bank on these customers, I guess.
All right, but I want you to take it like 30 seconds and draw out how you're going to do this market sizing, and then ask me for all the data points you need in one go. So don't keep coming back with questions, right? So draw it out and say, okay, these are the 4 data points I'm missing to do my market size. Let me ask my interviewer what I need. And then anybody who's done can raise their hand. I want to hear from somebody what approach they went with. Any hands? Any takers? Any brave souls?
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
All right. So the model I'd like to use is establishing the market value by going through the percentage of the target market, kind of penetration rate to get to the size, and then the average value to get to a market value. So what I would need to know is how many residents are there in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
Then what percentage of them actually drink coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Interested.
Yeah.
Then kind of the opportunity there, you'd need to further bring that down to how many people visit coffee shops.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe some people make coffee at home. You can't exclude that. Yeah.
And then what do they pay on average per cup of coffee?
Nice. Absolutely. Okay. So there's two ways that you can do market sizing. Okay. You can do either a top-down or a bottom-up approach. Okay. In this instance, Luann's gone with the top-down approach. She's gone with the whole market and then she's segmenting it further. Okay. So she's making it smaller and smaller. Okay. There's a whole market of all the residents. Then we're going to cut out all the people who don't drink coffee. Then we're going to cut out all the people who maybe make coffee at home. That's called a top-down approach. Another way to do market sizing is a bottom-up approach, which might say, I am a coffee drinker. Shivani. I drink 4 cups of coffee a day, out of which 50% of them are bought in a coffee shop. And I know that there are 2,000 people my age in this town, and multiply that by whatever else. So you can see how you're going from like a bottom, an individual user, all the way to growing at the top. You can use either approach, whichever one you feel more comfortable with, but I would like for you guys to do that first, to be like, which of these approaches am I using? Then you can ask for the correct data. So you see, once Luann drew it out, she knew exactly what data points she needed. Well done. Okay. So now you show your approach. So Luann shows her top-down approach to Tumi. Tumi likes it. Okay. Tumi sees that you can do the calcs in 2 different ways because you've paid so much money for your MBA. You're so brilliant. Amazing. Okay. Now she wants you to actually approximate the market size using your top-down framework, the one that you've chosen. She's giving you some data. You can assume that the Cambridge population is 100,000 people, and on average, each person drinks 1 cup of coffee per day. What is the approximate market size? There are no right or wrong answers. All answers can be different. I just want to hear yours, and I want you to walk me through the math when you're ready, whoever wants to go. Jean-Andre, you want to go?
Yes, it's
Wait, question. Did you use a calculator or did you do your math yourself?
no, so it seems so simple.
Okay.
So it's 100,000 cups per day. That's the market size.
Walk me through your math and walk me through your framework.
So no, I just multiply the number of people by the average number of cups they drink.
Yeah, but then Luann, remember Luann said you wanna trim it down, right? So yes, there's 100,000 people. They each drink 1 cup of coffee per day, but there's other factors as well that can help you narrow down the size. Luann, do you want to take a stab and then Kudzai?
Yeah, is it okay if I state my assumptions?
Yes.
All right, so if we have 100,000 in Cambridge who drink 1 cup of coffee, that is 100,000 cups of coffee. And if we assume that each cup of coffee, and this is going to be wild, but it's £5, that's 500,000 pounds per day. But let's be conservative and say it's a highly competitive market, so we'll only capture 10%, as an assumption, which leaves us with 50,000 pounds per day.
At this point, I'm gonna warn you guys against 2 things. When you do a market size, you do not take into consideration the market share that you've captured. Remember, it's the total available market. I haven't told you or I haven't asked you for a recommendation on what percentage of the market you can capture. When doing a market sizing exercise, guys, be very careful. Never narrow it down by competitors or market share. You want to always present your total available market, okay?
But you want to know per year or per day?
Per year. Market sizing is always presented per year.
So 36 million something.
I'm sorry?
36 million something per year. But then we have to know what percentage of people drink at home or buy at the store and stuff, you know?
Absolutely. So these are questions that I would like for you to have asked me, right? So Luann, you did kind of mention it, but you said, okay, I'm going to state my assumptions, but instead I would have liked for you to say, okay, my narrowing down criteria are what percentage of people drink at home or not, maybe what percentage are adults, okay, maybe what percentage I don't know, have any other parameters, and then you ask me for this data, and then I will say as an interviewer, sorry, I don't have this data, but you can make assumptions, and then you make the assumptions. Yeah. So Kudzai, do you want to give it a shot, or should I reveal the official result? There's no right or wrong answers, but this is just Bain's answer. Yeah.
Okay, I think your clarifications have put me into perspective. I had looked at it to say we have 100,000 people and 1 cup of coffee per day, but I also wanted to understand to say of the 1,000 people, do they drink or do they take or get the coffee from the shop or they get it from home? I was going to ask that so that I will then also be able to say for my market, is it going to be 50,000 if we have 50,000 drinking their coffee from the shops? So that will be the size of the market that I'm also going to be looking at. Nice. That's one of the questions that I was actually going to look at. Thanks.
Okay. And then what Kudzai has done is she's given us a per day market size. But again, we always want to represent market size in per year. We want to know what our annual opportunity is. Okay, so this is a real case from Bain. It's called Coffee Co. And this is their suggested solution. There's no right solution. There's no wrong solution. This is how they've done it. You guys could have done it anyway. Okay, so they're saying of the 100,000 people who live in Cambridge, 80% are adults. So maybe they're discerning the market of people who have buying power, who can actually go out and buy it at a coffee shop. The kids can't buy it. And also 80% sounds like a lot, but then if you made this assumption, you would state, I'm suggesting that it's 80% adults because it's a university town. So we would assume that most people are actually adults, right? That's the key here to stating your assumption. Of this, you're saying 50% of adults are coffee drinkers. Okay, you're also suggesting this as a suggestion. And then you're saying of the people who are coffee drinkers, okay, we know for a fact that 1 cup of coffee per person per day is what the case stated. So that's 40,000 cups of coffee per day. Then you're going to say 50%, which is your assumption. You can also say 10%, you can say 20%. In fact, I would say something like 50% of coffee made at home and consumed at home is maybe high. You're in a university town. Most maybe young people don't have a kitchenette. Maybe they do have to go buy it at a coffee shop. Or you can say the inverse, which you can say, I think 50% is too high because most of them are university students and they're poor and they don't have the money to go shop at a coffee shop. Either way, you have to justify why you chose the percentage and explain your assumption. Okay, so then you come to the number of cups of coffee per day bought at a coffee shop. Total is the total available market in all of Cambridge. And then you multiply it by the number of days in the year. And guys, you can see here, they've estimated it to 350. Why? A, to make your math easy for yourself. Don't go with 365 ever. And then if anybody asks you why, you can say, well, the coffee shop might be closed X number of days in the year. They might have public holidays, whatever. But to make my math easy, I'm going to go with 350. You can even choose to go with 300. You can say, Tumi told me she only wants to be open 300 days of the year. She wants to go to South Africa for 50 days. Make your assumptions, but just state them and keep your math really easy for yourself. So now the total market size, guys, this is really key. So if you don't know about market sizing, there's total available market, total serviceable market, total obtainable market. There's lots of market sizing calculations. And if this is something that you're weak at or you don't know much about, please go ahead and do research, because almost every case interview will have a market sizing question. That's guaranteed. Okay, so in this instance, you are telling me, Tumi, what the total available market size is. That doesn't mean that Tumi is selling 7 million cups of coffee per year. She knows that that is the total opportunity, based on which she'll make a business judgment to say how much of that market share can she actually capture. Okay. All right. So if you guys are okay with it, we're going to continue. So Tumi now understands what the total market size is. Okay. She's getting excited. She wants to gain a better understanding of how much coffee she needs to sell herself in the first year to make this a viable business. Okay, so how many cups of coffee does she need to sell herself to break even in the first year? Are all of you familiar with break-even analysis? Do you guys know the equation? Okay. If you don't, I can also drop it in the chat if this is your first time. I will just drop a quick. Dropping it in the chat. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what break-even analysis is, it's basically profit equals revenue minus costs. At a break-even point, your profit is 0. So you're saying that your revenue exactly equals your cost. So your revenue would be the price per cup times the quantity of cups sold, and your cost would be your fixed cost plus your variable costs. At this point, you guys should have lots of questions for me.
Yeah, what do you think your fixed cost would be?
Okay, sure. I can tell you how much it's, I've done some research and I found out how much it's going to cost me to open the shop. I have that data point. Would you like that? It's going to cost me 245,610 pounds.
Okay. And the variable cost per cup or per labor and everything?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean because I didn't do an MBA, but I can tell you how much it's going to cost me to run my shop each year. Okay. Okay. To run my shop each year, it's going to cost me 163,740 pounds.
And what is your estimated amount of customers that you think you're gonna get per year? Oh, yeah, no, actually.
That's what I would like for you to calculate.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the price of the coffee? Because that's important as well.
Yes, definitely. That's a great question. The price that I have found out through my research that I can sell a cup of coffee at is about £3.
I have one more question. So when they were asking you about the fixed costs, you mentioned them to be 245, and then you said the cost to run the shop is 145. So we can't really say that's a variable cost. So my specific question would be, how much do you need to spend to make 1 cup of coffee?
Ooh, that's a great question. Brilliant. Actually, I've done some research and I found out that the cost to me per cup of coffee that I sell is £1.
Just tell me the price of your coffee again.
£3.
Cool.
So I'm going to reiterate, everybody's asked a lot of great questions. I'm going to reiterate some of the numbers. The price per cup of coffee that I can sell the coffee at, the price is £3. The cost to me per cup of coffee is £1. I can tell you how much it's going to cost me to open up the shop because that's going to be up front. That's £245,000. It's actually £245,610, but 245,000 is fine. And then the cost to run the shop each year for me, so that's, you know, everything else, it's going to be about £163,000. If you are still confused, the variable you're trying to be calculating for is Q. You have all the other variables provided to you at this point. So Q is what you were looking for within the equation. Okay, Hating has an answer already, and it looks pretty good. Hating, do you want to walk us through your calcs? Also, why is your calculation so precise, dude? Are you using a calculator?
He's just very smart.
Yeah.
Hating
Well-
is cheating.
No. Well, yes, no. I was just writing it down. So you add the 245,610 plus the 163,000, which gives you 408,610. And it's, in other words, it's PQ. If I look at the equation on the screen, PQ minus what was it? 408,610 minus 1Q. So 2x or 2Q would be 408, and 408,610 divided by 2 is 204,305.
All right, guys, Hating has got it. He's absolutely on the money. He has also walked us through his calcs. All right, so guys, we were doing a break-even analysis here to help Tumi understand how many cups of coffee, so what quantity of coffee does she need to sell just to break even, so just to cover her costs. That's what a break-even analysis is. You'll often have to do break-even analysis to understand how to recoup your investments, etc. So in this instance, you need to know what that PQ minus fixed cost plus variable cost equals 0. Okay, that's break even. Profit is 0, right? And as Hating mentioned, here we have two costs that are fixed costs, and then we have only one variable cost, which is the cost per cup of coffee, which was £1. And our price was 3. So Q comes out to be about 205,000 cups, or if you want to be really precise and brilliant, then it's 204,305. Well done, well done. Thanks, Hating. So I'm just going to pause really quickly here to make sure all of us are on the same train. How are you guys feeling? Did you guys get similar results? Were you getting close? Did you see that the fixed costs and variable costs were different? Did you get distracted by the cost to run the shop per year could be perceived as a variable cost? Any comments? Did any of you get stuck anywhere?
I got similar to that, but I did love the fact that you know, we also taking into account the capital cost, because that's sometimes the mistake that people make, where we look at your running costs and your fixed cost and not considering that you've actually going to spend a lot of money to open. It might be money that you're not going to spend again. But yeah, I love that it looks at that as well. It gives you a clear indication of what you're looking at.
Absolutely. And that's often why you do break even in your first year, because you might have some of those big capital expenditures just upfront when you start a business. Great insight. Thank you. Okay, so now, guys, we've done a lot of our quants. You've done all the quants for your case. Okay. Now comes a recommendation question, and you're not going to be asked this question explicitly, but you yourself are going to say, okay, I've come to the end of my case. After running all of these calculations, what is your final recommendation to Tumi? Do you think it's reasonable for her to open a coffee shop?
Ronnie, it might be slightly noisy on my side. I apologize in advance, but this is exactly where I would then play off the break-even point with market share and determine whether it's a reasonable percentage.
Yes. So walk us through that, Andre. What would that actually look like, the calculation?
So typically the break-even point that Hatting shared with us, divided by the 7 million, if I'm not mistaken, the previous figure, and that would give us approximate 3%. And then, of course, it's based on Tumi whether she's willing to risk the 3% market share.
Henri, give me your recommendation. Give me one line.
So overall, in summary, I think 3% is definitely very realistic, and Tumi should proceed to open up a coffee shop in Cambridge.
Okay, great. Thank you, Henri. So absolutely, a good answer might state, yes, Tumi should go ahead and open up this coffee shop because there are 7 million cups of coffee sold in Cambridge every day, and the break-even point is only every year, and the break-even point is 205,000 cups, which is only about 3% of the market share. Breaking even is actually achievable. Actually, attaining 3% of the market might be achievable. So that's a good answer. Guys, remember we talked about what makes a good answer and a great answer. How do we take this from a good answer to a great answer?
Next steps.
Yes. So somebody tell me what next steps you might leave Tumi with.
Possibly pointing her as she identified a perfect location already.
Yes. And something that all of you were mentioning up front a little bit, you were getting really eager on the cutthroat landscape. Might there be lots of other coffee shops? Might there be competitors? We might also want to start looking at this now. Okay, so a good answer absolutely is us stopping here and saying 3% of the market might be achievable. So let's go ahead and open this coffee shop. Okay, a great answer or a better answer would be, now we want to take into account her own investment time frame or any other considerations. Okay, so what might be her go-to-market strategy? How will the organization differentiate itself from its competitors? How will this coffee shop outshine other people? Okay, is there already a dominant player? Is there already a Starbucks in the area? I don't know, whatever, that might make it difficult for Tumi to play in this market. Okay, is the market full of smaller competitors that she could possibly beat because she has a big investor behind her? These might be things that you might leave her as next steps with. But there's something else that's missing that I said very early on in the case that a consultant needs to bring that makes them a truly good consultant. It's a type of insight. And I think we've not exercised that here yet. Anybody?
Was it leadership or something?
It was business judgment.
Okay, yeah.
So if I simply look at this number and I see, okay, the break-even point is 205,000 cups that I need to sell in a year. Per day, how many cups is that?
500, something like that?
Yeah, it's like 500-600 cups, okay? If I'm using business judgment, I might say, let me go ahead and do some research and benchmark this against other coffee shops, okay? Tumi's never been in the coffee business. She's about to open a coffee shop and she's going to have to sell 657 cups a day. In my mind, that sounds like quite a bit much. And then what I did, guys, earlier today is I actually just went ahead and Googled. I went ahead and Googled and checked how many cups of coffee like Avida might sell in a day. So let's have a quick look at, where is that? Dang. Okay. I want to share my research on Vita. And so I quickly do a quick squiz. I know you guys can't do this in a case interview, but you might do something like this. And here, a quick Google search, not even a lot of detail, says Avida inside a store or whatever, like inside a gas station, generally sells like 300 cups a day. Damn, okay. So this is Avida with like really smooth operations. Can Tumi also meet like 657 cups a day? So if I was talking business judgment, if I was talking on the reels, I might say, actually, practically, this might not be feasible. So yes, as a good consultant, or as you might say, yes, go for the opportunity. As a better consultant, you might say, go for the opportunity and here are some next steps. But as an excellent consultant, you might say, hold up. Practically using business judgment, I don't think Tumi can sell 657 cups of coffee a day. So I don't know if it's a viable business opportunity. Maybe in a few years, maybe if she expands her business operations, maybe if she gets like amazing staff. But in the beginning, I don't think it'll be like feasible for her to do this. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so would you ask about that, what the competitors would sell in a day, for example, or during a case study, or?
You know what I would leave it at? I would say, in my opinion, 657 cups is quite a bit. However, as next steps, I would do research and find out what the average coffee shop or a small to medium enterprise, a small mom and pop shop can sell, because that's what we're trying to open here. Tumi isn't trying to open the next Starbucks, right? She's just trying to open a coffee shop in Cambridge as a retirement business.
Okay.
Yeah. But like leaving that nugget shows me that you have thought past just the obvious answer.
Would it be? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, from my side, it also takes a couple of minutes to make a cup of coffee. I don't know how many. I would say it takes about 3 to 4 minutes to make a cup of coffee, serve a customer. So that gives me only a certain amount of cups of coffees that you can literally make in an hour. So she'll be open for 24/7.
Yeah, and she can't be open on the weekends and every day. Yeah, absolutely. So that might be another way to justify like a number and say, okay, well, we're saying 657. If I do some quick back of the envelope calculations, I think the max, maybe even with a really efficient process, you can maybe make 400 cups a day. So I think this is not a viable business. But Danielle, that's a great insight.
I wanted to ask, is it like reasonable to ask in such a situation what the typical time frame is for profitability? Because it's unrealistic to break even in year 1.
Yeah.
So is that something that you ask, like how much can you afford to float the business until you reach break even?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what the point here is, right? So you first want to ask, like, good, okay, we can break even. That is fine. 3% market share sounds good. But the key is actually understanding Tumi's investment timeline, right? We need to understand that first to be able to make a better business judgment case. So I would 100% ask that for sure. Great insight.
Monica, it's also a question from me. We allocate the initial capital now in the first year. Can it be recommended to spread it out over a certain period or not?
Yes, and that's why you might want to know her investment timeline. So you might say something like, look, if Tumi's investment timeline or return on investment timeline is 1 year, then this is not a viable business. However, her time frame is actually 3 years, she can recoup her cost over 3 years. Maybe that's more viable, because then it'll be like, I don't know, whatever, 250 cups per day. And that's actually more manageable. So absolutely close out with asking, we don't know what her investment time frame is, but that is a question in my next steps that I would like to ask her. Great. Okay, well done, everybody. And thank you for playing along. I'm going to leave you with some hot tips on how much I think you guys need to practice to get to ninja level, because obviously we've done this case and this is your first time casing. It can feel really overwhelming. You're like, wow, I can't do break-even analysis yet. I didn't know the equation. Man, I haven't really thought about market sizing much in the last year. These are all things that have to become second nature to you, okay? To be able to do this and to operate at ninja level of casing. This is my recommendation. You need to invest between 50 to 75 hours of put in this hard work, okay? So I would say the prep timeline for this is about 6 to 8 weeks leading up to an interview. If any of you have an interview scheduled in the next 2 weeks and you've never done a case before, don't do it, okay? Ask to reschedule that interview, because you only have one impression or one opportunity to make a great impression. So just reschedule that interview, take some time, at least 6 to 8 weeks. And I would recommend practicing at least 25 cases, both as an interviewee and an interviewer. So that's 50 total cases that I would recommend that you practice. Okay, this case that we just did, the CoffeeCo case, that's a very, very easy, like preliminary, not even entry-level case. This is just practice case. Okay. And each case of practice might take you about 2 hours. I know casing will actually take 1 hour, but as you're just getting to learn it and get used to it, it'll take you about 2 hours. Okay. So now you might say, Shivani, where am I going to find 50 cases? I don't know where to find these things. Don't worry, fam. I've put together a whole resource deck at the back for you with links to all the big consulting houses. And I've put together sample case interviews for you that you guys can look through per consulting house. And then I've also gone ahead and pulled together the case books from all the big business schools around the world. Some of them are dated, but it doesn't matter. Practice is good practice. Each of these case books has about like 100 cases in them and all from different companies and at different levels, which I love. So you can literally know like this is a Bain round 2 case, or this is a Bain hard case, easy case. Okay, so it's broken down like that, which is really helpful. And then at the end, I've put together some of my favorite resources. So there's some links to frameworks, to case math, to Theo Smith Recruitment. So he specializes in management consulting and recruiting if you're interested. Otherwise, if you just want to go straight up, these are some of the best books in the world in terms of casing. So there's Mark Constantino's Case in Point. You can definitely probably find this at your own library. Every business school will have a copy of this. Victor Cheng is a legend in casing, and his YouTube channel is really, really helpful as well. And then there's Case Interview Secrets from Victor Cheng as well. And then there's Wetfeed Consulting's Ace Your Case consulting book. And then this is no longer valid because McKinsey, I think last year did away with their like sample PSTs. So I don't think they do these anymore. They have like a gamified test. So don't worry about that thing. But everything else is really helpful and useful. And I'm going to attach this in our slides. They're all linked. So you guys can just go straight to it and check it out. Okay.
Giovanni, a quick question.
Yes.
So imagine we were brilliant at this and we were able to do 75 hours of practice, et cetera, but we can't get an interview. What would you recommend? And what are the types of things we would need to do to kind of ensure interviews? So like, I'll give some examples. Like I've applied for a couple online just through their portals, and I'm like, is there something wrong with my CV? What are the types of things to make you stand out as a candidate to secure an interview?
Yeah, this is also really shit because nobody tells you this in South Africa from like kindergarten, but consulting firms are looking for people who were high performers all the way from kindergarten. Like they want to see that you've basically got like a 4.0 GPA or like perfect scores, perfect marks, because they believe, I think incorrectly, that that translates to performance. Maybe like Henri can correct me here. So sometimes the things like that can preclude you, like if you don't have excellent marks. But I mean, that would be the only thing that I can think of. The thing that you can do though to maybe overcome situations like that, and I think that's where business schools are great, and consulting clubs, like at the GSB, each of the, I think every term, like all of the consulting firms will come to our campus and they'll do like one-on-one recruiting and practice and just chats. And then sometimes if you get to know them really well, then you can, just through personal interaction, you can showcase that you do have the skills and maybe your marks shouldn't matter so much. And then you can maybe like step bypass that process of like being really worried about the marks.
Oh, okay, because they don't even like ask you, just like submit your CV. So if you don't include your marks, I suppose, on the CV, then they wouldn't even look at you. But anyway, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's really surprising because if you do, like in the US, when you even do the consulting applications, they actually ask you for your GPA, they ask you for your high school marks, like they ask you for everything. But that's interesting and a keen insight that they don't ask for that here. Maybe I can ask you guys, do you guys have like the consulting house, like do they come to your campus to recruit? So for example, BCG was actually in town this week on Monday and Tuesday at the GSB.
Yeah, we were invited to that. Actually, that invite was extended to our members, and it is something that us as an exco is working on, and we'll try our best to bring into the second half of the year.
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity. I mean, Deloitte is right here. They can come anytime to your campus, for example. Yeah. Great. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to stay on the call for as long as needed to answer any questions that you guys might have.
What is the biggest no-no, Shivani, in your opinion, in a competition, in an interview like this?
Yeah, the biggest no-no for me would be to just like say an answer. So if I might start a question like, how many basketballs can you fit in this room? And you won't believe how many times people will just be like, 48 or whatever, 48,000. And that's the worst thing you can do, because the point of that question isn't to actually know how many basketballs you can fit in this room, but is to understand your thinking process and your methodology. And so I would never ever just give an answer. In fact, it's always better to possibly retort with more questions. So like, hi, could I get the size of the room? Do you have the measurements of the room? Do you possibly know what the average size of a basketball is? And then I would walk them through like a calculation before giving them an answer. So that for me is the biggest no-no, is to just jump to a conclusion or an answer. Yeah.
I wanted to ask at the start of the session, you said you've been rehabilitated from consulting and have now gone into strategy. Is there something we should know about?
No, yeah, I'm so happy you've asked this question. If I could be honest with you, I would say that every university student should go work in consulting for like 2 years at least, because I think it's like business school, but you get paid for it. You learn so much and you learn so quickly. You get to travel. It's an exceptional experience. You get to work with like international clients. You get to work with so many different industries, and the learning curve is so steep. And it's one of the most interesting industries or companies to work for, because what you studied really doesn't matter. I mean, there's literally art history majors who are phenomenal consultants, right? You don't have to be an engineer to be a consultant in mining. You can literally have studied anything and go work for a mining client. So from that standpoint, I think consulting is a phenomenal actual job. It's just extremely taxing. And I think you can only sustain it for a few years. And that's what I mean by, I did it for 6 years and like I was done, like I was burnt out at the end of it. And that's also real, like the real rules of consulting is you work insane hours. You have insane client demands. You have crazy schedule demands. You could literally like get off a 14-hour flight and have to go to a client meeting immediately after and not get any sleep, right? So this is also the realities of consulting. You might live out of your suitcase for 2 weeks. You won't have a personal life ever. So these are the negatives of consulting, which is why at some point most people just like call it a day. Most people actually go into consulting with the mindset that they're only going to do it for 2 years because they want to gain the skills and gain the network. Some people even go into it with the intention of, I want to be in this industry. I don't have the degree to be in X industry. I'm going to bridge it with consulting. So I'm going to work in consulting for 2 years, gain the experience. And oftentimes the industries or the companies that the consulting firms work for will actually hire you. They always poach the analysts from consulting firms and stuff because they've gained all the experience at this client side. So it's also like a shortcut or that people use to get their foot into the door in the industry that they want without having studied that. Yeah.
Okay. I do have another question. So if you are like on the careers page of a consulting firm, how do you know for which position you should be aiming?
Yeah.
Good question.
So also when they come to your campuses, they'll let you know as well. They have different requirements. So for MBA levels, they usually say you can apply either to the consultant role directly or to like a senior associate role. You don't have to apply to the analyst roles and stuff because those are just entry level for university students.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Is that what you were asking, or were you saying like, oh, there's like a role in a different country or?
No, well, I've taken a look. There's like associate, senior associate, and then it's just I'm not always sure like some of because it might be a little bit of a different structure, translating from where I've been working to that. And I don't know if that really counts against you or if they're okay with like, oh, okay, you just need to get used to the day-to-day or like the team structure as well.
Yeah, that's why. So each consulting house is going to be different because their titles are different, but that's why they'll never make you apply for the most junior role. You'll be like 2 or 3 steps ahead of them already because you have work experience and because you've done your MBA. So they'll when they come to your campuses, or even if you can read online, they'll usually say, I mean, some of them will say like, okay, if you're an MBA candidate, you can apply directly for the consultant role.
Okay, thanks.
So if you practice a case, how do you know you did it right? Because you have been giving us feedback, but if you do it yourself, how do you know if you solved it well or not?
I'm going to actually show you guys, if it's okay with you, like a sample resource. The casing books always have solutions in them. So I'll show you. Okay, so for example, this is one of the case books that I love using, and this is one of my favorite cases that I like as a starting case. So it's a Bain round 1 case. It's called Snack Foods Acquisition. So here's the prompt that I would read to you if I was practicing with you, and then everything else is the solution. And it literally even tells you like what the framework would look like, what some clarifying questions the candidate could ask you would look like. Here's like a market sizing, and then like what's good, what's not good. They'll even close with, okay, so this is the break-even analysis here. They can give you some, if you want to make it more difficult for yourself, there's more complexities that you can add. And then here also at the end, here's what a good recommendation would look like and what the next steps would be.
So actually, these cases are much different from the ones we did before, where you get like a few pages of data and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cases that we did before were actually just like teaching cases. These are interview cases, so they're always very short. There'll only be one small prompt, and you should be able to do it within an hour, basically. So the prompt for this whole case is just these 4 lines, like these 2 lines. Yeah. And that's why I also love these is suppose you're going to go interview for, I don't know, Bain or like BCG. In here, you can type the company and just find all the BCG cases and whether they're round 1 or round 2 cases. So casebooks are amazing resources to study from.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Tumi.
Hi, Shivani. I just wanted to ask a question, right? If for people that are looking to immigrate to, say, Europe, and then you try and apply for the consulting jobs there, and I suppose we would be the least likely to get appointed. But do you also reckon that it's better to go into a South African consulting firm and then transferring to the country that you eventually want to go to? And are we kind of like the underdogs if we go to other industries or whatever, sorry, in other countries and try get in there?
Yeah,
because we don't really know the industry, etc. Yeah.
I think it completely depends, but I can tell you from my personal experience. So I'm an Indian national, and like having to apply for consulting firms or any company outside of your country of origin is so complex because that company has to sponsor you. And if they have to choose between somebody they have to sponsor and go through all of that effort versus somebody who's already in the country and has the authorization to work, they're probably going to go with that because it's like the path of least resistance. But I do know that a lot of consultants, like friends in South Africa, have applied to just consulting firms here, and then they'll go and do international projects. So you still get so much experience, and you can still earn like your per diem and like you get like lots of other perks if you do international projects, and you can add to your base salary. But I think once you've been in the firm, then you can ask for a transfer eventually, like, oh, we want to move to this country, or my partner wants to move there. Then it's easier once your foot is already in the door. So I would recommend at least starting to apply in the South African ethos first.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Would that then mean, Shivani, that it would be easier or make more sense to apply to the bigger firms with, not like a small firm in South Africa or like medium-sized firm, even if they have an international footprint? I think she's frozen.
I'm sorry.
Are you back?
She's a loading circle. Shame, man.
Was I at least frozen in like a looking good kind of way, or was it a really awkward freeze?
Sure. Yes. Did you get my question?
No, I didn't get it at all. I'm so sorry.
Would it make sense then to apply to like only the big consulting firms in South Africa if your ultimate goal is to immigrate?
So I'm also going to give a cheat for this because a friend of mine did it. After he finished his MBA, he didn't get into any of the top 3, the big 3, which is your MBBs, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. So he got into A.T. Kearney and he worked there for a year. And then he got poached, or he applied to Bain, and he got that opportunity. Not Bain, sorry, BCG, and now he works for BCG. So sometimes you have to play the game also if you're not immediately going to get in, because then at least you have a year of experience under your belt, and you're more likely to get into a bigger consulting house that will give you international opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shivani, can I just ask a follow-up question then?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard to get into consulting? Is it like the career of the year that everyone's flocking there, so now there's high demand, and they can be picky, or what's going on? It's so weird.
Yeah, to me, I think it's always been the career of the year because of the resulting things that come from it, right? You're basically guaranteed a job in like corporate after, in whichever industry you want, or even during work there, you get paid really, really, really well. The opportunities for travel and everything are phenomenal, and the opportunities for learning are fantastic. and just the support network that you get in the network that you build from working in consulting. So all of this makes consulting a very high in demand industry. And yeah, they can afford to pick the best, and they have to pick the best because they can't put average consultants in front of their clients if they're promising that they're the experts, right? So they have to be super discerning in who they pick. And right now, I know, like, I think like in the last year, there's also been like a big slowdown in consulting hires because there's so many more people who are like really highly skilled who are coming available in the market. I want to say especially in South Africa with like the unemployment numbers, so they can be even more picky. Yeah, so that's just something to watch for, because I heard that I think McKinsey's put a hiring freeze in South Africa, but I know obviously BCG is still hiring because they are going to campuses to look for consultants.
Don't you think it's also a bit fake? Because I heard some people, some friend of mine worked for McKinsey, and they are doing the hiring things, you know, but they don't hire anything. It's just to show that they're actually hiring or something. But
That
they
would be
don't
so
hire
horrible.
anyone. So that
That would
basically
be
let people waste their time to try to apply, but they don't hire anyone. Just to
I feel like if I think of it from a business perspective, that would be like a waste of resources, because the interviewing process is so intensive, right? For the company too. For each interview, it's like 2 consultants are busy, even the back work leading up to it, even the work after. Like, why would I put so many of my resources
know what I
into
mean? They make like a, I don't know, like an event or something. They don't actually invite people for interviews. They just do the events and stuff.
Oh.
Well,
Maybe
maybe
they're
they're just
collecting
looking
people
for,
for the future or something. I don't know.
yeah, or like looking for that diamond in the rough. You know, we don't really have
Maybe,
space,
yeah.
but if we find you, we'll make space for you, type of thing.
Yeah.
That could be,
Yeah.
But honestly, consulting isn't this is just for everyone struggling to get in. It's not the only industry or type of role where you will use skills that consultants use. So don't be discouraged. Look for like random, weird job descriptions on LinkedIn. Just shoot your shot, man. Just apply. If you can do 60% of the job description, just go for it.
And can I also say that I think everybody's so married to the big consulting houses, but I mean, honestly, you'll get a lot more exposure and you get to work on more exciting things if you're working for like a boutique consulting firm.
Yeah.
And there's one that's really amazing. It's called Black Slope. He's a Stellenbosch MBA grad, and his dad is your strategy teacher.
Marius Ingrario.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're always looking for brilliant consultants. It's called
Yeah.
Black Slope. You can check them out. And then also, if you are like, okay, I don't want to work for a big evil consulting firm, but I still want to work in consulting, there's also Dalberg, and they have offices in Johannesburg, and they are focused specifically on the development sector. So they look to solve the complex problems of the world, like sustainability or like poverty. So there's also that approach that you can take. So focus on maybe the boutique firms, or focus on purpose-driven firms. You can have a different approach.
What firm was that you mentioned now, Siobhan? Sorry.
Dalberg, Dalberg. Yeah, and they're global. They have a global footprint. And then Black Slope is the boutique one, but there's a lot of boutique consulting firms now, and they're all doing really interesting work.
The type of thing that's interesting to me is like if you are a kind of specialist in a certain field, like marketing, for example, you can work for consulting firms that specialize in brand development and marketing strategy and that sort of thing. So that's, you still flex your flex, but in different industries.
Yeah, and Tracy, marketing is becoming such a huge function, because I know Accenture just bought up King James, I think, which is the largest.
I know, and KJ was, no offense to anybody who works at KJ, we fired KJ. So, because they were just like, blah, and now hopefully there'll be, you know, some in kind of cash and enthusiasm injection into them now with Accenture. It's Accenture song. But Deloitte did the same. So Deloitte has Fjord, which is their design agency. It's like an in-house marketing design agency. So it seems to be a thing.
Yeah. Also like one of the biggest trends now is becoming like independent consulting. So like what I do, and you can sell your hours on so many platforms. There's Upwork, but there's also Cognizant. And I think Cognizant is like only for consultants. So Upwork can be like for a yoga teacher or anybody, but Cognizant is only for consultants, and you can sell consulting hours if you specialize in anything, and you can dictate your rates. So there's lots of other ways also to consult.
Cool. Yeah, very interesting session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abu.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any more questions for Shivani before we end?
Maybe one. Shivani, is there, or are we going to have some form of, how can I call it? A session where we'll look into how you, not edit, how you position your CV to, I don't even know how to phrase this question, but I find as MBA graduates, we come from all these different industries and we gain this new set of these skills now from the MBA, and you come, you love all these skills that you've gained over the years, and we just struggle to really strip it down to what really matters, or what the industries that we want to go to at that particular point is looking for. So it's a little bit interesting, and I'm talking from personal experience and just some other people that have approached me asking how they can go about packaging their CVs in such a way that they appeal to the pivot they are looking into. So it's yeah.
I think you can probably answer that, but I'm going to tell you from my perspective. First of all, you guys have, I'm 100% sure you have an amazing career services office, and
Yes.
they're those people, like that's their full-time job. They should actually be reviewing your CVs, telling you how to position your pivot. They should be
Yes.
experts at it. Otherwise, you guys probably have like an associate network of coaches who also does this for you guys. Check it out. And pivoting is key, and it's very important to be able to articulate the transferable skills. So I'm sure that they have experience in-house on how to do that. But otherwise, you can also hit me up and then we can make a plan if you want to.
Okay,
You
cool.
can definitely reach out to SBS's career services. I personally had my CV professionally done. There's a few firms that the business school works with. So there's like a discount for MBA students. And it looked amazing. Like when I got it back, I was like, wow, I would hire this chick in a heartbeat. So it was definitely worth it. It's expensive, but it is what it is. You know, you spend all this money on your MBA, you might as well just put that little like
Extra.
piece of
Roughly how
glitter
much you
on
get?
there. I think I spent like 4,500 Rand.
Okay.
And I know it's a ton of money, but like I said, I would hire me, just based on the look of the CV. It's not even reading words. But yeah, reach out to career services. There's a ton of things that they do. You can schedule one-on-ones with them. They are there to serve the students.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'm gonna love and leave you guys. This is our last session together. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to continue the conversation ever, or just be friends. I love friends. We can hang out. I'm a vibe in person as well.
Shivani, thank you so much for all your time and energy and effort. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you again next year. And hopefully at a networking event at the end of the year.
For sure.
We'll extend an invite to the social.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and then I'll upload the video and Shivani's presentation I'll share on resources on Stellenbosch Business Connect. Have a fabulous weekend, everyone, and thank you for sharing your morning with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Shivani.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you,
a lot.
Shivani.
Thank you.